Hello and good evening. Welcome to DH Sparks. This is Deccan Herald's brand new webinar series. I am S.R. Ramakrishna, City Editor, Deccan Herald. In this series, we discuss a variety of topics and bring you opinions and insights from India's top experts. In our inaugural edition, we talk about cinema in the time of Corona. It is my privilege to introduce today's distinguished panel. We have Nitin Datar, President of the Cinema Owners and Exhibitors Association of India. He joins us from Mumbai. And we have Pramod Arora, Chief of Growth and Strategy, PVR Cinemas. He joins us from Gurugram. That's where the multiplex chain is headquartered. And from the movie industry, we have two big names, both from Bangalore, but with fans all over India. Pawan Kumar, director of Much Loud Films, Lucia and U-Turn. He's also part of a directorial team called Filmmakers United Club. And with fellow directors, he's been thinking of ways to take on the crisis brought about by the pandemic. We also have Samyukta Hornad, a very talented actress who's appeared in several Kannada, Tamil, and Telugu films. And she has acted in Life Ishtene, Jigar Tanda, and Oggarne. So we also have Baradwaj Rangan, editor of Film Companion South and author of critically acclaimed books, one of them on Mani Ratnam, Conversations with Mani Ratnam, and a national award-winning film critic. So thank you. It's a very distinguished panel. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for making the time for this webinar. I also welcome all the participants, people who have logged in on Zoom and who are watching this on YouTube. So my first question is to Nitin Datar. The pandemic has been a huge crisis. I mean, I don't know whether there's ever been a crisis of these proportions ever before, whether the film industry has ever faced a crisis of these proportions. How are you looking at this? And you estimate that there are about 1,500 films waiting for release. What is your sense of what is going on, sir?
There was in 1984 a similar situation at the horizon when all the film industry had come together, whether it was producer, distributors, exhibitors, artists, technicians, for the reduction in taxes. And for 1 month, we had closed down the industry. And after that, we got some reduction, a substantial reduction in taxes, and many of our demands were met with by the government. I will not say that it is the same situation now, but the situation may be compared to that period. At present, we have got, say, about 50 to 60 films which are ready for release. And out of this, what I have heard is about 15-20 films will be released on OTT. Now, if you look at the whole world or their countries, there was a lockdown there also, and slowly they have started to unlocking the situation. Today in India also, we are at a stage when unlocking is under process.
Right.
And I expected that the cinemas would also open in, say, about 4 weeks or 6 weeks. Yeah. So my contention was that all the sectors of the film industry should have come together to sort out this problem.
Sure. We will look at the prospects in a little bit. I think Pramod, as one who runs a chain of multiplexes, what strategies are you looking at to survive and bounce back and grow? Because I was reading that PVR has 822 screens across 69 cities in India and also in Sri Lanka. Now, what is the state of affairs and how are you looking at this situation? Pramod, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me now? Yeah.
Yes.
This is an unprecedented situation which none of us has ever experienced before. Mankind has never experienced such sort of a situation before. The closure of cinemas was a necessity. It wasn't possible that cinemas could have remained open in this pandemic. because that would have been, aiding the spread sort of a thing. As the situation comes back to normal, we see the same consumer coming back to the cinemas. The consumer has not changed, nor neither has the consumer habits changed, nor have the films changed, nor have the stars in the films changed. So it is the same platform. It is just a matter of time. As soon the cinemas basically come back into action, we would see the consumers thronging the screens and the films getting released onto the screens. During this time, some of the films which have gone to the OTT platform, probably they had their own compulsions to get onto the OTT platform, due to which they went on. And of course, that even gave the option to consumers to be able to watch on an alternate platform till such time the cinemas are closed.
Right.
And I definitely believe it's a collaborative word. So, both of us, OTT platforms and cinemas, have to coexist, and there has got to be a convergence in some period of time, which is called the phygital word in our terminology of engineering.
Yeah, right. Baradwaj, how do you look at it as a film critic and as an observer of the Indian film scene?
As somebody who's neither distributing nor making films, I think among everyone here, I probably have it easiest because, content is more readily available than before. In fact, I would say there's a surplus of content happening right now, to watch, view, review. Of course, the quality of the content is a different debate, but, that's the same thing even in theaters, because sometimes you go and the movies turn out to be good. Sometimes they turn out to be not so great. But I think right now, the main thing is that, like, whatever has been making its way to OTT has been, with a few exceptions, what you'd call a second-rung product. The real top-tier film or show has not been yet coming to OTT. So I think that's when we'll know some what's happening in terms of the thing. But like right now, I feel that with the lockdown being eased, we're in the period. I do think that there's things are beginning to look a little optimistic, which is why the biggest films are still holding off, doing anything right now. But that said, I do think that this period has inadvertently created a situation, an imbalance in the kind of films that are going to go to theater and the kind of films that are going to, have to resort to platforms like OTT.
So you're saying there's a new distinction emerging because of this situation brought about by the pandemic.
Right. No, I think the situation was already underway. I think the pandemic has kind of accelerated its,
Yes. So I'll take a moment now. We have a poll question for our viewers, which will come up, and people watching this on YouTube may not see this question, but I'll read it out to you. The question is, will OTT platforms retain their advantage even after cinema halls and multiplexes reopen? So you have about 30 seconds to vote. Please go ahead and vote, those of you who are on Zoom. As we look at this question, now this OTT or over-the-top streaming platforms that have come in, these are doing better than ever before. Almost all film viewing is now happening on OTT platforms. So I will come back and we can discuss some aspects of how the dynamics is changing. But before that, my question is to Pawan. Pawan, yes, this has been a very bad time. This has been a time of distress, crisis for all sectors. But would you look at it differently and say, amidst all this grimness and distress, has the lockdown given a pause to people like you, some creative space, a forced sabbatical, and that is perhaps making you think of new ways of creating, writing films, new ways of directing films? How do you look at this, and what have you been doing these past 3 months?
If I have to speak for every creative director, filmmaker, artist out there, I think everyone would agree that we all go through sabbaticals like this through our career. I think artists are most prepared for lockdowns because I think half the time in a year we are in lockdowns because that's how little work you can do between projects, and you've got to wait for something to happen. So that aside, I've been saying that I've kind of gotten a bit more busy the day they announced lockdown. I used to be a lot more sort of jobless, thinking about what to write, what to film. But as soon as the lockdown came into enforcement, somehow my mind started working on how to resolve more practical issues, how to get into more production and distribution issues that are going to come up in the future, and how to come up with the best solutions for it. So I haven't really engaged into writing much, but I have been trying to create sort of parallel systems or an alternate system for filmmaker to get into and showcase his film.
Yeah, I think we will talk about the Filmmakers United Club in a bit. We are now closing the poll, and then we'll come back. We will have time for some questions. You can send us questions that our panelists can answer. My next question is to Samyukta. As an actor, what has changed for you? Pre-corona and post-corona, you were doing conventional cinema. You've acted in Life Ishtene, Pawan Kumar's romance film. And after the lockdown, several of your films which were ready for release are now looking at maybe bypassing conventional cinema halls and going to OTT, going to streaming platforms. What does it look like to you from an actor's perspective? How are you? Are there good points? What are you looking at?
Interestingly, my release, my web series called Locked, released right after the lockdown. I had 2 releases just during lockdown, and the response has been very interesting in terms of the number of views. I don't think these web series or my film would have got as many views if it actually had released before the lockdown on an OTT platform. 60% increase in the number of views on these platforms have helped. But what I think is, I think there were 2 big releases in Tamil which were female-centric. The protagonists were female, and a release like that, which would probably be slightly risky if it doesn't have a big superstar. If you're not a South Indian big superstar, people probably do not invest a lot of crores in your film. And an OTT suddenly, because of the kind of things that we are seeing in the content, like say a web series like Money Heist, the first season they invested a lot less money. The second season the budget was a lot more. So I'm seeing that happen to my own web series, where the budget was slightly less, and now that the viewership and people have started liking content like this, my next I'm planning to start shooting in September, maybe God sequel 2 or another sequel, and the budget has increased. And so that way, if I look at it, for women with who are not superstars but who want content driven or a lot more screen space, I think it's a great opportunity. And I would say some of my films, like my Tamil film or my Kannada film Arishad Varga, which is having a straight OTT release, it's also safer for the producer right now because they have their own burden, and this kind of eases things a little bit. But the risk involved for them when they have a theater release is, I feel, a lot more. So there's both good and bad, but as an actor, be it the big screen or the small screens, you still have to just act.
Yeah, right. I think
it doesn't matter.
We can ask Rangan. Rangan, there's been a change in the way films are made for OTT. The darker films are making it big. There is Sacred Games, which probably set the trend, and then there was Patal Lok and Delhi Crime. And there is this feeling that OTT is a platform for these darker films, more macabre films, dystopia kind of films, whereas the big screen is meant for Salman Khan and Rajnikant and the films, the more boisterous films. How do you, as a film critic, look at this trend? Is OTT changing the way films are made?
I think it's a little too early to say because right now we haven't had films made specifically for OTT that many. It's like they've all been films that were supposed to release theatrically and ended up on OTT. So I don't know if we've had, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think there's been actually any film that was made for OTT and kind of, you're talking about web series. And the, sorry?
I'm talking about the web series, which is made on the scale of a big film these days.
Yeah, so the web series is an alternative to what is shown on mainstream television, right? Because that is the more mass audience. Like just like films have, like what film equals television, OTT equals, a series equals like. Okay, no, so sorry, I'm confusing myself. But what I'm trying to say is that, just like, you have the mainstream films and the OTT films, or in abroad at least, you have mainstream television, and the darker stuff that cannot be shown on mainstream television, kind of, there's a space now on OTT. And it looks like these things are doing well, but right now, the real problem with OTT is that, like Sanyuka said, I think the only gauge for whether something has succeeded or not is whether the season 2 gets picked up, or or if the budgets become bigger, because right now nobody knows how any OTT series is doing because nobody releases numbers. It's impossible to track anything. So just because something is reviewed doesn't mean it's necessarily being consumed by the public in numbers that justify that kind of production. So I don't know, but yes, you're right in a way that the OTT has enabled, actors to embrace certain roles more suited to their personalities probably than the screen, which is more limiting, especially in the mainstream kind of film. Yeah.
Right. We'll just take a moment to look at the results of our poll. If we could have the results, please. 78% of our respondents say yes, will platforms retain their advantage even after cinema halls and multiplexes reopen? 22% say no. So 78% believe that streaming platforms will retain an upper hand even after cinemas and multiplexes reopen. So Pawan, let's look at this question of how something that wasn't ever expected. I think neither the film industry, distributors, producers, cast and crew had expected a situation like this. How is this changing the way you look at cinema?
I think we've started, when I interact with all the directors that I'm talking to right now, everyone's cinema was more about your wide shots, it was more about getting into the story slowly, establishing space and location at time. But what we are seeing with OTT is so there's something which we all keep discussing. The cinemas is not just about the big screen and the surround sound and the whole community experience. But once you buy a ticket and once you go into the theater, you're making that commitment with that film that you're going to sit and watch it. It must be a really bad movie if you're going to get up and walk out. Otherwise, there is a commitment that I will watch this movie till it finishes. So as writers and filmmakers, we had this little power to, little tool, to build that act one, to go slowly, 25th minute, you reveal something, and then you take the story over. But with OTT and other digital mediums, what's happening is that the audience have that button, if you don't grab them in the first 2 minutes, they're going to move on to another show. So it's changing the way you write things. It's forcing you to come up with this shocking, the thrill factor within the first 2 minutes. And I see that this is what makes every OTT platform say that we want thrillers, we want horror, we want something to do with action sort of a series. And your first 2 pages is so important suddenly. Whereas when we used to write traditional 2-hour, 120-minute, 130-minute films, we used to take time and we had an artistic approach to it. Now we have to bring in this and make it seem artistic as well.
You have to be quicker and you have to cut to the chase.
I know, it feels like a game where you have to constantly work on engaging the audience.
Yeah.
You know, because they have tools to see how much is left. They have tools to go forward if a scene doesn't work. So
Yeah.
it's sort of a very new experience for writers at this point.
I get it. I think you've worked on Laila, and you've also worked on other kinds of films like Manasare, which you scripted, and
Yeah.
which is a film I love, and YouTube and U-Turn, and also Lucia. So you have to look at various kinds, various genres, and you do agree that OTT actually forces you to speed up the narrative and make it.
Yeah, I mean, they have see, an OTT is like another marketing distribution company. So they have their algorithms, they have their set of notes that come into what you write. They say that something should happen in the first 3 minutes, only then the audience will stick on to the show. So it's not a free hand. You don't have a free hand at creating your work from the start.
Not as free of commercial considerations as most people imagine. So I think this question is to Pramod, and then I will also ask Nitin this question. The big question for you, as someone who runs a multiplex chain, and all these big blockbuster films that would have come to the multiplexes and to the standalone cinema halls, they're now going directly to OTT because there are no cinema halls open. How do you look at this? Do you think this is going to change the dynamics? Will people get used to watching big films on their mobile phones and on their laptops? And how is this going to impact your business?
So, if you look at the poll also, it came out that 78% of the people suggested that OTT is going to retain its position. And, we are so happy about it. When I say we are so happy about it, it is basically more content getting consumed by the Indian consumer. The long form play has always been, doing great business on OTT, and it should also happen in India too. So even if I was to look at Rangan's background, the number of books rating out there, there only must be 2% of those which would have been produced either into a web series or into a film. So there is still 98% left to be made into a long form play or a short form feature play. Now, that sort of a content is available to be made, and it should get made so that the consumers have choices. That being said, I don't believe that, the equations are going to change. It has not happened. OTT was always there. The pandemic just, happened to close down the cinema halls, due to which people went into the alternate channel, and they'll come back to the blockbusters. There's a commercial reasoning towards that. Besides Samyukta, there is a DOP. There is a lot of people in the background of making films. They have to have their livelihood. The box office exists for that. So that is the commercial side of it. Then the 3-hour frenzy, which people catch up in a cinema hall. Then the creative butterfly freedom, which Pawan just spoke about. The freedom of a creative butterfly who needs to basically have the consumer right there and be able to showcase what he believes through his eyes is the best to be shown to the consumer. So all those parameters kept into context, the equation is going to come back into an equilibrium state, albeit more content coming on for the consumer, which is going to be beneficial any which ways. So, the content that we used to consume in our books, as I just said, would now be available on a web series or on a short feature film or, a documentary and so on and so forth, and which can be consumed by much larger audience.
You're saying
beyond the realms of books.
Of content which will go to platforms like OTT, and there will be lots left for the big screen as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a global phenomenon. You can pick up any country. The reason of Windows, there is a commercial reason and there is an intellectual reason also to bring in the concept of Windows. The windows which exist in between an OTT platform and in between the large screen, there are both the parameters to that. The intellectual, when Pawan says the creative freedom, because there could be films, which become very interesting after the first half an hour. Now, those films may not get an opportunity to be showcased on a small screen because I have the remote to change it to another one. But, the creative butterfly needs to showcase that, and the consumer also is looking forward to watching it.
Yeah, Nitin, Pramod is very optimistic that things will get better once the lockdown is lifted. How does it look from your perspective? Because there are 6,750 cinema halls across India is what I gather. And how many of them are in a position to bounce back once the pandemic is gone and the lockdown is lifted. How do you look at this situation?
After the cinemas open, I don't know how many cinemas will open. And even if they open, I don't know what products are left to be screened on a single screen or multiplexes. Previously also, there was some understanding between the producers and the exhibitors regarding the release of the films. Even in on TV channels, producers used to wait for 4 to 8 weeks before they release the film on the TV channels. But first they used to release on theatrical, theatrical stage. Here also the problem arose because of COVID. Right. OTT has been in existence for more than 2-3 years also. Yeah. But the problem has arisen now. Even previously, all the films first used to get released in theaters, then on OTT platform. That practice should be followed. Yeah. But once the cinemas open, it will take not less than 2 months or 3 months also to establish and the public to get back to the cinemas. Yeah. And if there is no product, as I said, most of the cinemas, I am expecting if there is no product, about 1,000 cinemas will close down. So it's a very fair. Yeah.
You're saying about 1,000 cinemas closed down?
May close down.
May close down. Okay.
After because you're saying unless the government helps them out.
Right. So you are looking at a situation that calls for a concerted effort from the government, from filmmakers, and from the other players for cinema halls to come back. Rangan, do you see something like this happening? You know, all these sectors coming back and respecting the ecosystem that existed before this pandemic. Do you see them collaborating and then saying, okay, we have a 2-month window for theatrical release, and then we go to OTT and these other platforms that are opening?
I think it's going to be a bit of a free for all. I don't know if the pre-OTT, the pre-pandemic ecosystem is going to come back, simply because, we are increasingly in a world where people want things for free, right? As a journalist, I know how difficult it is to try to convince people to pay for your website, to pay for articles that earlier they were doing it. 10 years back, they were paying for newspapers and magazines, in order to read a thing. I mean, there was no such thing as free reading. You either, unless you went to a barber shop or something like that, there was no such thing as a free read. You bought things. Now, everybody wants, if your newspaper says you've consumed your free articles for the month, please subscribe or something, they just find the same news on another, channel, outlet. So it's become that. And the more they get used to free stuff, the more reluctant they're going to be. And I see what is happening in the rest of the world is going to happen here, which is the Marvelization of cinema. So, like certain tentpole movies like the Marvel films, the big Christopher Nolan films, the James Bond films, these are going to make people say, okay, I want to go to the theater because that's the sound I want, that's the big experience that I want. It's theater going, I feel, is going to become an event where people are going to say, I'm going to go to the theater if there is a big enough movie to warrant, the 3D films that come out like Avatar or whatever it is. But I suspect that a lot of the films that might have gone through the theatrical route and found word of mouth success are going to be affected a lot by this process, because I think that people are going to gradually shut down too, simply because of the economics that they've gotten used to. Is my feeling about this.
So essentially, what you're saying is, what has happened to print because of web journalism is going to happen to cinema, conventional cinema, because of streaming. Yeah. Yes, I think there are many things that are changing. And Samyukta, how do you miss all the fan frenzy when you go to a movie hall, when your movie is being screened out there, and being on OTT, people watching your films at home? There is no interaction. There is no celebration. There is no community coming together to celebrate your performances. Do you miss that?
No, honestly, I think because of social media and everyone being available, say on Instagram or Twitter and elsewhere, you actually get to see the success of your OTT release or any film immediately. As an audience, I think the whole spectacle of watching a film is something even I would miss. If I get a phone call when I'm watching something at home, I actually stop what I'm watching. And the experience, like Baradwaj sir said or Pawan said, the experience of committing those 2 hours on watching something on the big screen, you actually miss that on the small screens. You can do so much. You're eating, you're distracted, and you can skip. Now that is the experience that audience will miss, and I as an audience will also miss. But as an actor, honestly, you have to just play your role. The kind of background check that you have to do or work on your role is probably going to be the same. But what you get as an actor for me is the luxury of time. As in, I get a lot more screen space, which I enjoy. So I guess for my audience, they get to see me a lot more. And that is what I want as an actor. I want that on the big screen because I would think that is still more powerful in a lot of ways. But this again has a global audience. So it's like I say, this is a space I think that will have to coexist. And as Baradwaj sir said, it's going to be an experience and a spectacle. So the ones who don't have the privilege of having Netflix and all these other platforms, they still need that escape. And only films and theaters can probably give that.
Right. So this question is to Pawan. I was reading a review by Baradwaj about of this Malayalam film Sufiyum Sujatayum, in which he says the film is all about touches, and those fleeting moments, those slice of life kind of moments, and there is no madness, right? So is this going to happen? The web as a platform has no place for the madness of love, the mania of cinema, the frenzy. Do you see that happening?
I don't know in what terms he meant that. At least what I've known or heard of that film, I know that it's available on my phone or on my television, but I'm just holding on to not watching it because from just looking at the way it's I have a little projector and a screen in my office. So I've been waiting to just get to my office and to watch it there. So I think at least it's more like a film buff who wants that. But from a content perspective, if you're asking, like I said, it's more instant reaction is what a OTT or any small screen content will look for. How quickly can I get you excited for the next 1 minute? And then how quickly can I get you excited? I think also what works is if I can get you hooked for 2 episodes, then I know I have you probably for another 2 episodes. So, and also content writing for OTT is more character driven. It's more about characters than about plot. So every time we try to make some writing we are trying to look for characters. It's actually a very interesting, I'm not saying that OTT content is bad in any way. It's actually difficult writing as well. Because you have to come up with interesting characters and you have to give them that interesting journey through the series, and many characters also get to be together. So I think there is a different kind of madness when you create it with the characters. Maybe the larger screen, the larger than life feel, that goes away, but more realistic character play comes into picture. I hope.
That was a slight audio glitch. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but we can't see you.
Yeah, your video's off it.
Ramakrishna, the bandwidth is gone.
Yeah, so Pramod
Is it back?
So, yeah, the bandwidth is gone. So.
Yeah, Pramod is so happy right now. He's proved his
Pramod, but the audio, I think, can you hear me? And
we can now see you too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So, Pramod, the question to you is, I was reading some analyst documents, and the average occupancy for PVR is something like 35, and then you also talk about weekend occupancy of 50 to 52%. Do you see this continuing in the post-corona world? Do you feel that people are coming back in the same numbers, or do you need to do something to get the numbers back?
Honestly, Ramakrishna, we are always reimagining and reinventing, cinemas. But if you look at the cinemas that I would say that the new age cinemas that, companies like PVR end up creating are all about experience. So it's an out of home experience wherein, people are looking at coming in and celebrating those 3 hours, which is more like, it's a small holiday, if I can call it. Now, that side of it is not going to go down. Man is a social animal, because if I just take the word social out, then he becomes an animal. The word social is not going to go out. So man is going to remain, or, for that sake, the mankind is going to remain a social creature. So that is going to get people out, but they're looking forward to that experience in that. So experience is what the multiplexes have been always talking about, an experiential side of it. It's not just the film. The films happen to be there. Alongside the films, you have great food, you have great ambience, and you have a great social fabric, which is getting, created around there. You're talking about the film, pre the film, post the film, on a meal, on a concession, on a popcorn, on a soda. So it's all those parameters, which basically bring about that experience. So, in this thing, we don't believe that this experience is going to go down. It's not that this, the word of cinemas, it has been there since times immemorial, and it is probably going to be there in the future too. But it will change.
The idea of film as celebration is very intrinsic to our culture, intrinsic to India. I will just take a moment to for the second poll question. Could we have the question, please? Yeah. Will you go back to the cinema halls once they reopen? This is the question that we are asking. Please go ahead and vote. Those on YouTube may not be able to see this, but those on Zoom can vote. Please go ahead and vote. Pramod, you were talking about the experience. Now there is popcorn prices have always been a contentious issue when it comes to multiplexes. And then once the multiplexes open again, people may not have the same kind of income, jobs with job losses and salary cuts. Are you looking at bringing down popcorn prices and making it easier for people to come back to the market?
Ramakrishna, it's a very important question, and I'll give it to you in a context. I think you got frozen. I hope you're able to hear me.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, so that's good. Yeah. So, it is a market-driven reality. If, let's say, the prices are high, you'll bring it down. If they're down, then you'll bring them up. It's a market reality, market equilibrium state. So in one of the real estate webinars, someone asked me that if, the real estate goes down by 20%, what's going to happen? My answer was very, very simple. If it goes down by 20%, you would not be able to afford it.
Yeah.
The real estate which you can afford today at an X price, once it goes X minus 20, you would not be able to afford it. The reason is very simple. Because if it goes down by 20%, that means the world has lost a lot of jobs. The world has lost its economy. And that thing at 20% discount also would be expensive for you to be able to hold on. So it's a market equilibrium state which will define, expensive is a subjective terminology. Yeah. So, if you look at the multiplexes, bringing about the experience, bringing about the large screen benefit, and this benefit, it's not just getting retained by the cinema or the multiplex owners. It is passing on to the last leg of film production also as well. It is going back there also as well. So it is, the quality of production or whatever is happening at the back end, it's supporting all those things. So everything falls, if it becomes a deflationary economy, I have to reduce the prices of tickets and popcorn, and everything, that way decreases. Like in Switzerland, the salaries do not increase the way they increase in India every year. They are deflating. Yeah.
So we will now look at what the prospects are for the industry as a whole. OTT, which used to be a co-player, has now become a bit of a contender, bigger contender, challenger. A player who's maybe taken away your game for the moment, but things are going to change, of course. So what is it that we are looking at? There are 40 channels, 40 OTT channels, streaming channels in India, and that's a huge number, and that's a lot of choice for the film buff. So what are we looking at? What would I would ask each one of you to tell us, what is it that you look for from the government, from the other stakeholders in your industry? Let's start with Nitin. What is it that you expect the government to do? Nitin, can you hear me?
Yeah. Will you repeat the question again, please?
What is it that you expect the government to do, the film industry to do, the other stakeholders to do now for things to bounce back? What kind of support are you looking at?
See, during this closure period, the film industry has suffered loss of, say, 1,500 crores. And when the Prime Minister announced a package of 20 lakhs for the industries, we found that nothing has been done for the film industry. Neither the production sector, nor the exhibition sector, nor either anyone. So we expected from the government at least not to charge the electricity minimum charges, property taxes, to reduce the GST taxes, show taxes. There are a number of taxes which the exhibitors are paying, and which is a big burden. To reduce those taxes, to give us a loan, a soft loan, we are ready to pay the interest, but not at the market prices what when we take a loan by mortgaging the property. But we have got the property, but a soft loan with a lesser interest would be welcome.
Yeah.
That's all. We don't expect much from the government. But on OTT platform, we just requested, we had been writing to the government that you have to give up a level playing field. On OTT platforms, the rates for viewing, each viewing is about not less than 100 and 150 rupees. But there is no tax on that. But we are paying number of taxes. Right. And in that also, if you find there is no censorship, there are anti-national contents, adult content, foul language, and so many other things which the government should control on.
Right. So, you have a set of demands, which is that the government should step in and help the cinema halls to bounce back, soft loans and other kinds of financial help. So, Pawan, what is the state of art? What is the status of artists? How is it? How can they be helped in a situation like this? And please also tell us about the Filmmakers United Club and what you are planning to do, for the industry and what.
This question for me?
Yes, this question is to Pawan. Yes.
So I think the artists are, no matter what pandemic or war or any situation, even when they are hungry, that's the crazy thing about artists. They just want to keep creating. They just want to keep expressing. So at least every artist that I know is always trying to, at this point, is also not, I mean, it's strange that when you ask me this question, it suddenly hit me that not a single person in 3-4 months has spoken to me about medical insurance. They've only been talking about, hey, what I'm trying to think of in this. I have a cell phone and I want to shoot something. So I guess we are a crazy bunch. We want to keep thinking in these zones. In terms of FUC, which you were asking about, which is called the Filmmakers United Club, which sort of came up during this pandemic lockdown. It's sort of a platform in between a multiplex and an OTT. Because all said and done, if you look at the way each one of them spoke, which is a very basic, they're business-driven models. I think 100 years ago, when I was, when something was there to show it to an audience, so that was an art piece which was there for the audience. Slowly, all these other things got attached. Now, suddenly, they became important. So even when the theaters open up, single screen or multiplex, they will want movies which the larger mass will want to see, which again will create an event so that popcorns get sold and number of tickets get sold. And again, like I said, the OTT is looking at the content which is more interesting from the minute it starts. So
yeah, but
we
are you
thought
looking
as
for some kind of coming together of these various sectors within the industry to take on the challenges posed by the pandemic?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm speaking more from an artistic point of view, wherein there were before COVID, and I'm
Can't
sure there
hear
will
you.
be after. Hello. Yeah, is it better now?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was saying that
Yeah.
pre-COVID, post-COVID, there were a bunch of films that were getting made, which never found a sort of encouragement from the multiplexes or from the single screen, and also from a digital platform, because they were pure art, or they were trying to stay true to the sort of a storytelling which a filmmaker wanted. I think I am trying to bridge that gap. I'm trying to create this little space where if you haven't found your audience on a single screen or a multiplex or an OTT, then maybe today is the time where you can actually just release your own film. And
Yeah, you're talking about another channel, OTT channel, right? That is,
no, it's not really an OTT channel. We are talking more from a club where you bring the audience and filmmakers together. See, art was all about exchange of a story, exchange of a thought. So that's what we tried creating with the Filmmakers United Club, to create a space for this exchange to happen.
Yeah. So we welcome questions from our viewers, and I've got one question here and one observation. I am a cinema owner, trustee. I am leading and taking a call to close it for good. This is one message. And there's another message from Gautam Baradwaj, who says, while I do believe that the OTT platforms are going to be a major shift in the paradigm, I do not think they will replace cinema halls. Cinema hall is an experience. Consumers don't go to the cinema hall just for the content, but also for the collective experience. TVs did not replace the seats in stadiums. The relationship between cinema halls and OTT platforms would be similar. Yeah, I think this is the sentiment that we are seeing across the board, that these will continue to coexist. So my question to Samyukta, what is it that artists want now? We've seen a couple of artist suicides, and these are grim times. How can artists survive this period? Is there something that the government can do? Can medical insurance, for example, and then helping them tide over these hard times? What is it that the government can do?
Right. So I think a lot of channels, TV channels, have shut down. Some of the serials just randomly closed down. So even say junior artists who are way above BPL level, but their standard of living, the things that they're used to, are already at another level, and suddenly none of them have work. And the government is giving them probably 5,000 rupees a month, and if they have an artist card or something. So if you're unregistered, you're not actually considered an artist. I think something like that really becomes a problem. And the government should, honestly, right now, when it comes to, for the next 5-6 months, should especially help spot boys, artists, these daily wage laborers, makeup artists, costumers, a lot more, and not expect all of them to have Aadhaar cards. Because some of these boys live in PGs with 12, 13 members, and they really don't have their cars. They just come from their villages. And I think something should be done to identify these guys, and the daily wage workers should be helped. And even film graduates and others, they should sort of ease their, I think, fees and stuff, because God knows what they're going through. I mean, not everyone has support. It's a very, very difficult time for artists, especially. I think.
Correct. Pramod, what is the job scene? How are multiplexes holding out? Are there job losses? What is the situation like?
So across the industry, the pandemic has taken a situation wherein there are job losses. I'm talking more from the larger industry. As we heard Nitin also, that there are, he expects some of the cinemas to close down also as well. As of now, the multiplexes are still holding on in terms of the people, in terms of, the jobs. But, in case this thing goes on continuing, then yes, you have to adapt to the reality and then make a comeback sort of a thing. But things are now looking a little bit optimistic, if I can say that, be it a preventive cure or be it a a cure. So, whether it's a vaccine or a cure that comes in, it's basically going to be a major relief, wherein, no further onslaught on the industry would be there. The expectation and including all the surveys that have been done is very clearly suggestive of that there is a pent-up demand for people to come back to cinemas, to basically enjoy the films on a large screen. So for the initial few weeks, you may see, a little lesser number, lesser content coming in. But as one proceeds, the content would come out.
But my question is slightly different. I'm asking, how is it that the industry can come together and help artists, prevent artist suicides, help them tide over this crisis, help them with medical insurance? Is there something that the industry can?
So, it is the government who can take the lead out here, or the private enterprise together can take the lead. So the private enterprises can join hands and basically start collecting an amount of funds to be able to support the artist. And there's nothing better than this cause. In fact, it could be a better cause. It's a cause which can really help the industry sustain and tide over this challenging time. And it can be done through a private enterprise also as well. A private enterprise can basically form that sort of a, collection of funds which can be done.
You're right, but there's no denying that artists and actors, cast and crew need help at this moment. So there's a question for Baradwaj Rangan from one of our viewers. He asks, Hemant Kumar J asks, is the advent of OTT the golden era for screenwriters? And do you think OTT platforms have become a repository of average films? So there are two questions from our viewer. Rangan, can you hear me, because I can't see your video?
Yeah. Is my video off?
Yeah.
Is my video
off? It's working. No,
okay.
I can see you. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, the repository for bad films is only because right now there's a certain kind of film that's been coming there due to, like Pramod said, purely their own compunctions, whatever reasons they had for coming on to OTT. We haven't seen a pure OTT film yet. I don't know what that's going to look like. But I do think that if I don't know, because see, for instance, I found one thing that Pawan said earlier very interesting. He said that the OTT screenplay needs to be more grab the eyeballs kind of things. But one of my favorite series is Mindhunter, and it's a very slow burn kind of series. It's a crime series, and it's a very slow burn kind of series, and it has a very cult kind of following. So I don't know if that the audience for that is there in India. It will be very interesting to find out. But even otherwise, I think this is really going to open up. See, there is a huge section of writers who write for cinema now only because that is the only medium of doing something. Because TV does not offer them any kind of hope for the kind of writing they want to do. So I find a lot of these writers, I'm thinking that a lot of these writers are going to jump into OTT with great glee, simply because it's going to offer them a chance to do the kind of writing that they don't have to do with compromises for cinema, they can do here. And I think that's really going to open up a thing. And I know people who are actively setting up writing rooms and getting a lot of really good people who were earlier frustrated and actually quite defeated and humiliated by the cinema system, because the cinema system encourages a particular kind of writing, and not everyone is geared to do that. There are some people who really excel at that, but there are some people who are, I think, are really going to excel in this OTT platform.
Right. So so you're saying it's throwing the doors open to other kinds of writing, the kind of writing that was kept out earlier. There are a couple of other viewer questions. Why do most web shows have a lot of strong language and pornographic content? Is a question that one of our viewers is asking. Would Pawan like to take this question?
I think it's sort of, as soon as you're told that you have no censorship and you're open to doing or expressing yourself completely. I think there are two kinds here. One is which is genuinely the characters and the kind of character spaces and the plots which drive these language in the scenes, which are trying to reflect reality. But I mean, off late, I'm also seeing so many that I have started wondering that are you really trying to mirror what you see and trying to say that this is like a mirror to the society, or somewhere is this also coming in that hey, this kind of gets your audience interested because it's unique. There's a very thin line there. If you're, what's your intent in doing it? And I hope they don't push it so much that censorship comes into the space. Use it well, use it with your own maturity, so that it stays true to why you're using these images or language, whatever that censorship will try to take away.
Yeah, there are two more questions from our attendees that I'd like to read out. While the current scenario has movies which were in post-production getting released on OTT, how will the situation run out of content and shooting has to resume? I'm sorry, it's a bit jumbled. What changes need to be done to maintain regulations while ensuring good quality films? Essentially, the question is, how do you ensure that good quality films are made after all this, after the pandemic has run its course?
Can you repeat, please?
Yeah.
Can you repeat, please?
So how do you ensure good films are made, I think is the question. And there's Ajay Kumar who sent a question about the rise in the number of OTT platforms and each of them having their own subscriptions. The situation is being compared to the rise of cable channels. As a result, users are justifying pirating the content again, something that they had stopped. How do filmmakers and OTT platforms react to this? So has this brought back piracy is the question.
And piracy was always existed there. It is as if that piracy was not there. But that is the problem throughout India or throughout the world regarding piracy and OTT and all these problems. Even if you see in foreign countries, the films are not released on OTT simultaneously with theatrical release. But this question, I think it would be better if the producers answer that or the artist answer that instead of me answering it.
Yeah, I think we are running out of time. I have one last question and any concluding remarks you might have. What is that one film that you'd like to see on the big screen? And please append your concluding remarks. Well, let's start with Samyukta. What is the one film that you would like to watch on the big screen and not just on your mobile phone?
I think I would want to watch all my films on big screen, because at the end of the day, that thrill, that excitement that you get from watching your film on the big screen is very different from an OTT release. I still would want that. But what I would like is, since we've been exposed to so many different kind of content on OTT platforms from all kinds of languages. I know my mom and my grandmom now watching all kinds of languages. So I hope the star value kind of reduces and the content value kind of goes up in the kind of films that we consume on the big screen itself. And I also believe that the content for OTT and the main film, the theatrical release are different. So I hope they all flourish together. I hope OTT gives people like me a little more chance.
Yeah, and good luck with all your films. Before I go on to Baradwaj Rangan for his choice of film or maybe films that he would like to see on the big screen, could we have the poll results, please? Rangan, what are the films that you would like to look at, like to see on the big screen?
I'm a child of the big screen, so I actually, for me, big screen is how we watch films. I really don't. It makes no difference. Small films, big films. A film is made for, because when, like Pawan said, when you're setting up a wide shot, I know it's a wide shot. It's on the small screen too, but you really recognize the wideness of the shot on the big screen. So there is no real thing. But if you want me to pick a specific film, it's actually a film that is going to be released on OTT. It's David Fincher's Mank. which is about the writer of Citizen Kane, and I kind of want to really watch that on a big screen, which is never going to happen. So, yeah.
Okay, so here are the poll results. The question was, will you go back to the cinema halls once they reopen? 71% say yes, so that is good news to Nitin and Pramod, and about 29% are saying no. So that means that there's the audiences are waiting to get back and watch films at the multiplexes and the cinema halls. So yeah, Pawan, what is it that you would like to see on the big screen? Are there?
Yeah, I've always believed that on the OTT or what we call the alternate screen, phone, laptop, and everywhere, you are consuming content on all these platforms. But when you are in a cinema theater, the content consumes you. The experience takes over and you are consumed by it. And I think that's a great feeling, and which is why 71% want to go back and watch it. I think everything that we talk about, whether it's expensive or the traffic, it's all our everyday problems. So if we can't go today, we still think that, hey, I'll go watch it on a Tuesday morning. So the instinct is to go do it. So I would say that I hope the single screens, the multiplexes are open to such content. The content which consumes the audience, not just to the circus part of it, great sound, great 5D, 3D, 4D, whatever, but through emotions, through the soul of it. And I hope cinema will be available for those kind of stories and those kind of films.
Yeah, but is there one film that you're looking forward to? Tenet.
I think Tenet, yeah, that's one film, yeah.
Yeah. So Nitin, what is the one film, or maybe what are the top 3 films that you would like to see on the big screen, lined up for release, but not releasing for want of cinema halls? Which are the films that?
Usually, I like to see all the films, irrespective of language. But big and Indian, instead of Tenet, I would like to watch Suryavanshi.
Yeah. Hello. Yeah. So thank you. I think we have Pramod's choice to go. What is it, Pramod, that you're looking forward to?
See, for me, cinema is an immersive medium, so all cinema should be watched onto a large screen. Go watch more and more cinema on a large screen, and that's what makes the cinema go live.
Okay. So, but you don't have one particular choice. You're not a big fan of one big star.
I could say Tenet, but I would like to see Mulan also on the large screen. I would like to see even a small film also onto the large screen, because that's where it really comes out live. The immersive medium is the large screen. Otherwise, of course, a second this thing, I have an option to watch a long form play at my home.
Right. So thank you all, for sharing your insights and experiences. This has been a very stimulating debate, very interesting questions discussed. And thank you, Pramod, Arora, Pawan, Kumar, Nitin, Datar, Samyukta, and Baradwaj, Rangan. Thank you for your time, and thank you for sharing your insights with our viewers. Deccan Herald will continue to host more of these shows, more webinars. So do subscribe to our YouTube channel, and please keep coming back for our shows. So thank you for your time, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye. Truly appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.